I have used Canon cameras since the 90s, dating myself. Yeah, I started thinking about this just the other day about how long it's been. And yeah, it was back in the 90s with a Canon film camera was my first venture down the Canon road. And I stuck with Canon ever since, and here I am with a Canon R5 today. And I've never deviated from using Canon since I started. So I thought I would make a little video about why that is. I have a few pretty good reasons. They're personal reasons, but why I've stuck with them. I would say that, today there are so many choices of cameras that are so good. It's almost as if you can't go wrong with whatever you choose because everything's so good. And this video is not about trying to convince you that Canon is the ultimate thing that you should be using. No, I don't think that at all, but I thought I'd share with you why I do. And some of these reasons may be important to you in your journey of photography. So yeah, I probably should tell you some history, of the cameras that I've used and kind of how I arrived here, where I am now. Okay, so Canon has this really cool camera museum here online that allows you to basically look at every camera that they've ever made and get lots of details about every camera, every lens. It's really cool. So you can just click on anything you want here. So here's the digital camera lens haul here. Any camera you want to look at, you can just click on it and, you can see specifications and information about that particular camera. It's really cool. There's also lenses here, and that's also very nice to be able to look at. So you can look at this old EF lens lineup, which is amazing, but you can get any information you'd like about these, even a block diagram of how it's made. Really cool. Yeah, so this is a really useful thing to take a look at what all's happened in their history. And by the way, I will leave a link to this Canon camera museum in the information for the video. Anyway, okay, so this is where I started with Canon. This was the Canon EOS A2E, is what it was called in the United States. It was called the EOS 5 in Europe. And this is a film camera, and this was a great camera. And I remember buying the kit lens that came with it, the 28 to 105, and I still have it. Yeah, the camera I still have too. I actually gave it to one of my kids recently, so it's still in the family. But it was a pretty cool camera. I remember it had eye-controlled focus, which was a real innovation back then, and it worked really good. I always used it. It was really cool. Anyway, great camera. I used it for quite a few years, and I see here it was released in 1992. I don't remember what year I got it. I guess it was around 95, I think, something like that. So almost 30 years ago. It's crazy. That's a long time ago. I was a pretty young guy then. So anyway, great camera. Okay, so the next one was my first foray into digital cameras, and it was the Canon D60, which was a great camera. This was a 6 megapixel camera, I remember, and it was still in the new period there where all the new digital cameras started coming out. I remember Canon actually came out with the D30, which was a 3 megapixel camera, and it really made a huge splash because the image quality was really shockingly good. I didn't buy that, but I did get this D60, and it was, I remember it was really good. Yeah, I really loved it. Great camera. Yeah, good stuff from Canon. I think early on Canon was I think they jumped out in the lead in digital cameras pretty early on. Good camera. Okay, the next camera in line for me was the Canon EOS 1D Mark II, and this was the first professional camera that I used from Canon, and this one was amazing. It's really their sports line, and so it had really high frame rate for the time. It was only 8 megapixels, but the image quality was great, and that was a great camera, but it was the first exposure to the tank build of their professional cameras. It was amazing. It was heavy, but man, that thing could take abuse, and you never had to worry about a thing as far as this thing, failing because of being dropped or something like that. It just was invincible. So very cool camera. Okay, next in line was the Canon EOS 1DS Mark II, which was also one of their professional line cameras. And this one was expensive. I remember it was, even back then, it was more than $6,000 as I recall. And this was released back in November of 2004. And I don't remember when I got it exactly, probably sometime in 2005. And but boy, it was a great camera. This is probably one of my favorites that I've ever had. I really used it for quite a long time. It was fantastic. It was a 16.7 megapixel camera. Image quality for that time was just unsurpassed. It was amazingly good. And once again, like the 1D Mark II, it had the professional body build quality, which was just out of this world. It was really good. Yeah, this is a great camera. I used it for a really long time, and yeah, it left a good mark on me. Fantastic. Okay, next in line was the Canon EOS 5D Mark II. Amazing camera also. And this one was Canon's really when they really started to get into filmmaking with their 35 millimeter cameras. This was a 21 megapixel camera. Yeah, and it could record HD video at 30 frames per second, which was a pretty big deal back then. And yeah, so anyway, it was really popular for that reason, on top of, its normal camera, just still shooting capabilities, which were outstanding. Great camera. It's one I still have, and it's one that's loaned out right now to one of my kids, but I still have it. It's still functional, still great. Really good camera. So next in line was the Canon EOS 5D Mark IV. This was an absolutely great camera. Really good all around. It just did everything really good. I mean, just amazingly good. It was a 30 megapixel camera. Great image quality. And actually, at the end of the day, I found that file size to be what seemed to me kind of a sweet spot. You could print really big with that. You might not think so, but absolutely you could. Yeah, the file size was reasonable, which was nice. It didn't tax your computer too hard because it was a little bit of smaller file size, which is nice. But anyway, this was fantastic. It's still my backup camera. I still use it sometimes. Beautiful optical viewfinder. Yeah, really good. You could pick this up used for a really reasonable price, I'll say, along with some EF lenses, which are outstanding. If you're looking to get into photography for cheap, you could probably do it pretty good with the Mark IV. Outstanding. Okay, and last but not least, the Canon EOS R5 is what I'm currently using, and it also is an outstanding camera. Image quality is just stellar, just amazing. 45 megapixels. Yeah, I think that file size is good for just anything you could dream of. Yeah, it does everything good. Yeah, I think Canon's still a little bit early in mirrorless technology, and the R5 Mark II is already kind of out there, or it's been announced, but can't buy it just yet, but it will be soon. And I'm sure it's going to be great, but I'll be using this R5 for a while. I see no reason to upgrade because this one just does everything good. So that's my lineup of cameras I've used. Yeah, so good. I'm happy with all of them. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so having said all that about the cameras that I've used from Canon, there really are 5 main reasons why I've stuck with them. And the first one is, I think, the most important, and it is reliability. And I have to say that I have drug these Canon cameras through unbelievably bad conditions living here in the Pacific Northwest. They're getting rained on, totally wet all the time. The ocean here is always high winds, blowing salt. And I'm there a lot. Never an issue. The desert's not very far. You don't have to drive very far to be in the desert. So the dust and just grime. And yeah, I've dropped them and I've put them through the ringer, and they've always held up. I've never had an issue. I've never once had to send one of my Canon cameras in for repair ever. And that's shocking to me, actually, for over this many years and this much use, never really had an issue. And so this is a huge deal. If you're doing any kind of professional photography work, reliability is the most important thing. And I have to say that, yeah, they're just unbelievably good. Now, I know that I think Nikon cameras are very reliable too. I would say Sony's a little bit of a new player, and maybe a little bit less so on that front, but I don't know. I can't speak that much to it, but Canon, money, just so good on reliability, and I just think it's hugely important. So score on that, 10 out of 10. Okay, so reason number 2 for me sticking with Canon cameras is it's their user interface. This is hugely important too. One thing I've always found with Canon is their user interfaces are very logical. They're laid out very well. They make total sense. They're just clean, and it looks good. It just flows well. And the last thing you want is to be out in the field and futzing around with your camera trying to figure out how to do something that you suddenly need to do. So you want a good, clean user interface, and I find Canon is great on this. And one thing they do, they tend to stick with a very similar user interface, from generation to generation. Some people may find that a little bit boring, but I think that's really important, actually. If you're going to stick with a brand, you kind of want that. Now, they make improvements. It's much better than it used to be, but it's always been pretty good. And yeah, this is a hugely important thing, and definitely important to me personally. And I like this about Canon. I think they think things through very clearly, and stick with a philosophy that works well. So yeah, this is a pretty good thing. Okay, reason number 3 is lens selection. Canon's amazing on lenses. That EF lens lineup they had for many years for the pre-mirrorless cameras was just out of this world. And it was the reason why, you would see at the Olympics, you'd see those white lenses everywhere, because they just had great lenses, great selection. And, now we've gotten into the mirrorless world, and now it's the RF lineup for Canon. And so far, what I've seen, those lenses are great, fantastic. And they're building out their lineup, over time here. And I'm sure, it's going to be just like the EF lens lineup. It's already good, but it's going to be great. Probably going to be the best. I mean, they just give great selection, which you want that. So this is something that's really important. And just the other thing too is just the quality of the glass. Every Canon lens that I have used has been excellent. I can't think of one that was like subpar that I wanted to get rid of. No, every one has just been shockingly good. And reliable, robust, great build quality. I do tend to buy L lenses, the professional lenses, and so that does make a difference, but just rock solid, really good performance. This is hugely important, and Canon is gonna be 10 out of 10 on this usually. So yeah, I praise them for this. Their lenses are fantastic. Okay, number 4 is a strange one, and this is very personal to me, but and this is gonna sound weird to you, but one thing I've noticed about Canon is their self-cleaning sensor technology that they have is pretty darn good. And I have observed in some of the other camera brands, they're not. I'm not quite sure why that is, but definitely with Sony, it's a couple times where I thought about maybe changing. I've looked at Sony cameras because I do think their sensors are really good. Dynamic range is good. The image quality is good. I think it's actually a little better than Canon. It's close, but I think a little better. But man, I see so much sensor dust on the Sonys that I can't believe it. I see people who are cleaning their sensors almost every day when they're on a shoot. I never clean my sensors. And ever since Canon introduced us, at least with the cameras that I have, so that would be the 5D Mark II, 5D Mark IV, and the R5, they had their self-cleaning technology built in. I have not cleaned any of those sensors, amazingly. I can't believe it, actually. Hardly understand it. But and even with the R5, I think the mirrorless cameras are a little worse on this, but my R5, I have yet to clean the sensor. When I look at an f/16 shot with a pretty, whitish background where you can really see the sensor spots, I don't see much. There's a little, not to say there's none, there's a little bit, but not much. This is a hugely important deal to me. Very important, because I don't like to futz around with it. And this is one thing, back when I had the 1DS Mark II in particular, that was an incredibly expensive camera, and I had to clean the sensor some back then. They didn't have this technology then. And it was a harrowing experience. I hated it. I didn't like, opening up this $6,000 camera body and start scraping away on the sensor. I just hated doing it. I hated it every time. And so when Canon started putting in this technology, it was just such a relief, and it's so good. And I can't believe how good it is. Yeah, and it's funny, I'm not sure why the Sony sensors tend to get so dirty. There's something about the design, I'm not sure. There's some substrate bias or something that almost seems to attract dust. I'm not sure what's going on there. And, Nikon's using the Sony sensors too. And so I think it might be a little bit worse, but with Nikon's too. But I'm not sure about that. But I'll just say for the Canons, it's really good and it's really important to me. And that's one of my 5 that I care about. And it just continues to be something that I'm happy about. So yeah, very important. Okay, so number 5 is just image quality. And I know there's a lot to that. it's the whole package. It's the camera designs, it's the sensor design, it's the lenses. It has a lot to do with the lenses, of course. It's Canon color science. You can go read a lot about color science of the different sensor makers. And I think Canon's is very good. And okay, that's a deep hole you can run down. It has a lot to do with the raw converter you use, whatever. That's part of it. But overall, at the end of the day, just the image quality is fantastic. I'm just so often I'm just shocked. I come home from taking photographs and I start looking at the photographs, and sometimes I'm just like in awe of how good things look. So it's a hugely important thing, right? Image quality is, and I'll say this, all the camera makers now, you're going to get good image quality from all of them for sure. And I think everyone's experience with all the different brands is going to be great. I can just pretty much guarantee that. But I just have to say, over the years, Canon's been really good. It's just always looked great to me. And it's the whole package. It's just the usability, the lenses, the sensor design, the body design, just the workflow, just everything. And yeah, I'm really happy with that. And so, yeah, I've never felt like, I'm not getting, what I want out of the camera, for sure. I'm getting great image quality. So this is excellent. Okay, so there's a lot of other things too that I could say, but I just think Canon's just good, and just like every category, if you just listed out, 100 different categories, I think you'd find Canon, is up there pretty high in most of them. Yeah, just good stuff. So anyway, I wanted to do this video and kind of talk about, some of my thoughts and things I've learned over the years. It's kind of important to share that kind of stuff. We got some new big cameras coming out here soon from Canon. And so it's an interesting time to kind of think about this stuff. But yeah, if you're in the market for changing, or if you're in the market, you're getting into photography. Yeah, I just wanted to share my experience, and some of these things I think would be important to you too. So, of course, and also on all these things I've mentioned, of course, your mileage may vary, for sure. But in any case, just these have been my experiences with Canon, and it's been pretty good. So, all right, well, thanks for watching. And, I've had such good experiences with my Canon cameras, and they've made me happy over the years. And yeah, and good luck to you, in your camera journey, whatever brand it is you use, I think it's all good these days. You can't go wrong. So whatever makes you feel good, whatever feels right to you, that is the way to go. And, but anyway, thanks so much for watching. And yeah, I hope you enjoy this content. And, if you haven't subscribed, consider doing so. I'm hoping that I am giving you guys information and experiences that are helpful to you. And but yeah, subscribe if you haven't, and yeah, enjoy.